actually, Barney claims that during his exam, that they would actually end up taking a semen sample. Wonder what they needed that for. Hey there all you ghouls and goblins, my name is Kelsey Davis and this is my channel, Glamour and Goosebumps, where we talk about all the weird, the creepy, and the unexplained. During this channel, I will be taking you through aliens, Bigfoot, and the paranormal, along with anything creepy, spooky, and weird. So I will definitely be giving you guys all your spook facts. During this series, I don't really talk about the makeup that I use, so if you'd like to know more of the products that I'm using today, they'll be linked in the description box below. Please like and subscribe. You'll receive videos every Monday and Thursday, and I hope you guys really enjoy this story about Betty and Barney Hill. It was the very first abduction in U.S. history, so I'm going to take you back to a time, September 19th, 1961. Enjoy. Bye. Betty and Barney Hill are on vacation in Canada. See, Betty is a social worker and Barney is a United States postal worker. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because these are very, very credible witnesses. They both also never believed in UFOs, never read a book about it, never really knew anything about it. So on their vacation to Canada, I love Canada, they go through Niagara Falls. And while they're in Niagara Falls, they go to Montreal, they go to Toronto, and they really kind of are just seeing the city. And on their way home, they decide to drive through the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And as they're going through the White Mountains, they're on Route 3. Betty looks up into the sky and she notices this really strange craft in the air. And since Barney had at one point in time been in the military, he tries to identify this ship. The ship is moving sporadically, and he claims that there's no possible way that it came from this world. It was cigar-shaped, and they notice it miles away from them. And so this is where things get really crazy. Betty is a wild one. You're gonna love this story, and if Betty doesn't end up being your favorite character, we're clearly not listening to the same story. So Betty then rolls down her window of the car and she decides to start trying to get the UFO's attention. So she's yelling and she's saying, "Hey, over here, over here." And they start to get closer. What they notice is that this craft kind of almost sees them trying to get their attention and almost stops and like hovers mid-air. And so Betty's obviously very, very excited. So the craft would follow them for about 30 miles before stopping, and Barney would get out of the vehicle trying to like get a better look at the spacecraft. And so he goes to the trunk of the car and he goes to get his binoculars. So he gets his little binoculars, he goes out into this field and he starts looking into his binoculars and he sees these weird entities. He says somehow not human. And they were standing in like the front of the ship. There would be like almost like the glass window of the ship, and he could see multiple entities kind of standing there. And these entities would be wearing like all black, kind of shiny outfit, almost like a uniform. And it would even have a cape, which is very interesting, right? And he could kind of see them clear as day. And all of a sudden he feels like they're gonna capture me. So he gets almost like this telepathic sense like they're coming for him. So he runs to the car and he gets in it. And at this point, Betty's kind of freaked out too. She's like, "Oh no, me trying to wave at these aliens and now they're listening." And so as they get in the car, they just book it and they're driving down the road. And as they're driving down the road, they start to kind of feel like the car shake. And what they describe as a buzzing noise. And then they would drive down the road a little ways, and this is where like Betty kind of talks about feeling like they were under some type of hypnosis, because they ended up driving to this really weird kind of abandoned road. All of those human-like creatures actually standing and surrounding their car, so they had no choice but to stop. Betty would talk about how these aliens would communicate with them, but it was almost like it was like broken English. And she actually describes these aliens. So let me kind of give you guys like a visualization of what these aliens look like. So she claims that they are very much like us. So she said that, you know, in no way were they like those weird alien kind of big heads, green, you know, skin, big eyes. They did not look like that at all. They actually looked like they were just like another human species, which I find really, really interesting, that they look very much like us. She says that they didn't have any hair and that they had like smaller noses and smaller mouths and kind of like a tinge of a gray skin. Barney is still very much under hypnosis, but she starts to come to. And as she starts to come to, this is like the best part of the story. Betty punches one of the aliens in the face. And what's crazy is that she wouldn't remember this when she woke up, but her dress would be like all tattered and torn. And that was actually because she fought with the aliens to try to get away before they ultimately took Barney and her up into the ship. And so again, these are all going to be recounted events that she recounts later after going through like hypnosis. So we'll talk about that in a second. Betty claims that these aliens were then taking her and Barney and they were trying to kind of take them onto the ship because they wanted to give them an examination. Talking to them, they're basically saying that we just want to see how your species is different or similar to ours. So Betty claims that they would then separate her and Barney to do separate examinations. And the reason why was because they said that it would take longer if they were both being examined together. So this was a way for it to go a little bit faster. Barney completely under hypnosis. Betty is fully out of it, and they actually don't try to put her back under like that hypnotic state because she's very intrigued by them and she's asking lots of questions. The examination that Betty would receive, they kind of do like what we would go through if we were going through like a physical. So as Barney and Betty are being examined, they supposedly like kind of start to probe Betty's stomach and try to put a device into her navel. And she said that this was extremely painful. And so she asked them to stop, and they did. They didn't want to cause pain to her. Betty would continue to have conversations with the leader and the examiner, the person that was doing, you know, her examination. And as she's having this conversation with them, they start to talk about the solar system. And in this conversation, they start to explain kind of where they are from and the star system that, you know, they call home. And what's really insane about this story, and I feel like this is exactly why, like, I feel like this is 100% true. So if you want to get real spooked out right now, they ended up, you know, showing her an image of the star system. So then Betty would actually go on to draw that star system. And they actually determined that that star system is a real star system. The star system that Betty would draw from memory during the hypnosis therapy later on would be called reticulus, and it would be in the Zeta Reticuli solar system. And actually, when scientists would go back and they would do like a little bit of study on the star system that she draws, the crazy part about it is that they actually claim that that's a star system that could harbor life, and that that particular star system really does exist, and that this star system is probably about 11 billion years old. Now, keep in mind that our star system, as well as our planet, is about 4.6 billion years old. So the fact that this is 11 billion years old means that they could be very much further in evolution to us. So a lot of this kind of pans out in the story. So they decide to let Betty and Barney go, of course, because all they wanted to do was get some research. You know, they had already checked Barney and they were really kind of checking more his like bone structure. Barney claims that during his exam that they would actually end up taking a semen sample. Wonder what they needed that for. Scary. So they decide to let Betty and Barney go, and again, Betty being so enthused by these alien entities, she asks them if they can come back because she has lots of friends that would just love to meet her again. There was like no fear from Betty during this entire encounter. And I think that that's awesome because she was able to get a lot of information from them. And Betty actually claims, like without a shadow of a doubt, that no one could tell her that there's not other life on different planets because of the experience that she, you know, had for herself. So she knows that aliens exist. So Betty and Barney's watches would stop at the exact time of their abduction, which would be 2 hours prior to the time that they kind of reawoke 35 miles down the road on that Route 3. Betty and Barney would go home to Port Smith, New Hampshire. And as they're home, they would then start to kind of piece together these memories that they have of just like the instant that took place. And so they're kind of thinking and they're looking at their clothes, and this is where Barney notices that the top of his shoes are like all scuffed up. And Barney's a really respectable man. He would not go with some scuffed up shoes. And so Barney then ultimately has to throw away the shoes because the scuff marks are so bad. And then poor Betty, do you remember when I talked about her punching that alien in the face and them having a little bit of a scuffle? Well, Betty's dress was ripped from hem to seam, and it was ripped right at the zipper. And so, it was just torn to shreds. And Betty's like, man, when I put this dress on, it was in fine condition. And she's very confused as to why her dress is like just tattered. And so she finds this really wild, like pink powder all over the dress, and it's almost deteriorating the fabric. And so, she has no idea where this pink powder came from. She's never seen it before. So, days would kind of go on, and they just constantly had these feelings like just something wasn't right. So 3 days later, they would actually go under hypnosis regression therapy, and then kind of recount that experience that I just told you guys of all those, encounters and those conversations that Betty had, and Barney seeing the ship and, these feelings, and it would scare the living hell out of them. It would scare me too. That's insane. So Betty and Barney would be, absolutely reeling from this encounter that they had, and they would go to talk to their church and kind of figure out, like, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, this is wild. And then they were so compelled by what the hypnosis therapy kind of took them through that they would actually consult with the Air Force about what they saw and try to report kind of this extraterrestrial experience that they had. Also, it would later come to their attention that the Air Force actually pinged an aircraft on their satellites, and it would actually show up on 2 of their radar detectors. So this would be kind of a wild story if somehow they knew that the Air Force, they knew that information from the Air Force, right? But they didn't. And so that's kind of why the Air Force was really, really compelled by their story and actually would put it in their Project Blue file that would be closed and deemed classified information. Betty and Barney would go on to tell a lot of people about this story. They ended up having a book written about them, and this book would sell 300,000 copies. And in this book, it would depict, just the story that Betty really remembered, everything that happened to them. And Barney also corroborated it with, his story and going under hypnosis. Both of their stories were very much aligned together in a lot of ways. And so that evidence in itself was extremely compelling. Betty would later go have her dress tested, where that pink powder substance that was on there would be tested by 5 different laboratories, and the results would be inconclusive. That, along with, Betty's depiction of that star system that she was able to draw from memory and how that star system really existed. It's one of the systems that scientists believe could harbor life. In 2008, Kathleen Martin, their niece, would go on to actually have a historical monument placed in that same area that Betty and Barney claimed that they were abducted. And yeah, so that's the story of Betty and Barney Hill. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's just so much compelling evidence. Like, how could you not believe Betty? I find it so funny that she was so charismatic to want to like get to know the aliens and then to also punch the alien in the face. Like, kudos to you, Betty. You're a beast. You are a total savage. I would have been scared out of my mind. And so I'm going to throw, the question back to you guys. What do you guys think? Do you think it's real? Do you think Betty was making it up? If you guys want to know more about this, you can definitely Google Betty and Barney Hill story and get more information for yourself to draw an accurate conclusion. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Betty and Barney were abducted. And I think that it's real. And the fact that she claims that the aliens looked a lot like us, that's even more insane to me. So that's the story of Betty and Barney Hill. I hope you guys really enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining my channel. I hope you guys have a spooky, spooky day. And remember to stay safe, wear a mask, and have a great day. Bye.